Amy Robinson. Welcome to Ask the Specialist. Tonight we ask the senior care specialist here on CMU Public Television. Welcome back to Ask the Senior Care Specialist, where your questions fuel our conversation. Please feel free to call us with any questions you may have. Let me introduce our guests. First, I'd like to welcome Shannon Patrick, and Shannon is a DM with the Social Security Administration. What is DM?
District Manager,
And
also District Monkey for some people.
Whatever works, right? Jack of all trades.
Absolutely.
Probably have worked to that point.
Yes.
What do you do with the Social Security Administration?
I've worked for Social Security for almost 40 years. I've done a million things, from taking claims and processing the workloads to supervising the workloads to serving a public affairs specialist job in Cincinnati, managerial staff work in the regional office. So it's been a very interesting career. The district manager job entails the operations of the local office here in Mount Pleasant and the 40,000 people that we serve in those 3 or 4 counties that we operate in.
All right, very good. Well, welcome.
Thank you. It's awfully nice to be here.
Good. And also welcoming today Jennifer Martin with the Isabella County Commission on Aging. Welcome,
Hi.
Jennifer.
Thank you for having me.
And you're a social worker.
I am.
So tell me a little bit about what you do.
I'm a social worker with in-home services at Commission on Aging. I help older adults maintain their independence in their own home. We can help them set up with certain services such as home-delivered meals, homemaking, personal care, respite care. I take a lot of insurance calls with Commission on Aging from either clients or caregivers or people that are just interested to see what's available in the community for older adults.
All right, very good. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
So we have someone here from the government, and they're here to help you. But in Shannon's case, it's true. And so if you have a question on that very confusing maze of Social Security, please give us a call. And then as well as the community offerings through Commission on Aging. So Jennifer, let's start with kind of a broad question, but to get some definitions correct. And that is, what is the difference? You know what? I think we were going to ask you this, Shannon.
That's okay.
What is the difference between Medicare and Medicaid?
Great question. Medicare is a federal program, and the money comes from the FICA taxes people pay. 1.45% of your 7.65% you pay in, it goes to the Medicare trust funds. Medicare is a program that has a hospital insurance component, and it has a component which we'll just call Part B, which covers doctor services. The money all comes from the federal government. In comparison, though, the money for Medicaid is essentially a state-operated program. Some of the money comes from the federal government to the state government, but a lot of the money comes from the state itself. They have their own rules of eligibility. A lot of Medicaid money is tied up with long-term care, like nursing home care. The differences can be very confusing because, of course, the names are so confusing. But to ask questions about Medicare, you'd normally, or to get enrolled, you'd normally come to the Social Security office. Medicaid questions should be directed to these guys in particular, but also to the Department of Human Services.
All right, very good. So let's talk Medicare for just a minute, Jennifer.
Sure.
So I have a question here. Someone keeps hearing about Medicare Part D, but they said they already have a plan. But I believe we're in an enrollment period now, but do they need to re-enroll?
Well, if you already have a Medicare drug plan and you're happy with your plan, you don't need to do anything. It'll continue on for the following year. But the open enrollment window is very important. It goes from October 15th through December 7th each year, and it's the one time a year anybody can pick up, drop, or change plans. So if you're not happy with your plan, or if you're looking for a lower cost plan that might be available, we suggest that you do take a look to see what plans are available. You can call 1-800-MEDICARE to look at these, or to talk to a representative to find out what plans are available in your area. You can visit medicare.gov. Or if you're 60 and over and reside here in Isabella County, Commission on Aging have volunteers that are available to review plans for you.
So at this point when we're in open enrollment, do you recommend that people review their plan, or should they just say, well, I've been satisfied with it, so I'm probably good?
Even if you're happy with your plan, I always strongly suggest to take a look at the plans that are being offered. Every year plans can change their premiums, their deductibles, their co-pays. They can even change their formulary list. premiums can range from $15.70 a month to over $107. So there's about 30 available plans in our area. You might not realize that your plan's premium's going up next year. As long as you take a look at it so you're not surprised come January, it's a good idea to see what's out there.
And so finally, if I want to review my plan and I come to the Commission on Aging, how long might that take?
Well, it really depends on each individual. If you're only on a couple prescriptions, you might be in and out. If you're on a lot longer prescriptions, or if you want to really take a look at all the plans out there, could take usually 45 minutes to an hour max.
Very good. We have a call from Manistee, Shannon, and this is someone asking, will there be cuts in Social Security? Very broad question, but what can you tell us?
I don't think so. The problem with the funding for Social Security has been pretty exaggerated. If nothing happens to funding, by the year 2033, benefits would go down by about 24%. But I don't think anybody anywhere would anticipate that that's going to happen. For the 60-some years that Social Security's operated, the Congress always comes through and takes care of the funding problem. And the problem for Social Security as compared to, say, Medicaid or even Medicare is a tiny problem. It's less than 2%. To be honest, they can fix it anytime that they really muster the political will to go ahead and do it.
Okay. And a follow-up question, unrelated, but here's a person saying, I know someone who believes it's not a big deal to cheat when it comes to the Supplemental Security Income application.
Yeah.
And so what should I do if I know that someone is giving the Social Security Administration false information?
Well, Social Security is pretty aggressive on the subject of fraud. Actually, we're very aggressive on the subject of fraud. And the individual can probably inform the person that thinks it's okay to bend the rules that Social Security will go after them with full measure of the law to prosecute. That includes not just recouping the money, but it can include administrative fees of $5,000 per occurrence where they've misrepresented or lied or omitted factual information. That can be a very expensive penalty. Even in the cases where we don't actually decide to pursue, there are something called administrative sanctions. If you are involved, and we can do this by law, your benefits get shut off the first time for 6 months with no money coming in, the second time for 12 months, and any more 2 years without any payments. That's a very substantial penalty.
Is there any liability on a person, maybe a spouse or a close friend who knows about fraud but doesn't act to report it?
That would be something that I think I would refer to a lawyer. I would just tell anyone who's very interested in doing this that you can call the Social Security office to report fraud. We would be able to do that even anonymously by the reporter. There's also websites for the Office of Inspector General and Social Security, which people can go to and make their things. And again, I want to emphasize that this can be done anonymously.
Okay, very good. Jennifer from Alpena, we have a caller asking about your opinion on long-term life insurance.
You know, long-term life insurance, if you've got a lot of assets that you're trying to protect, you might want to consider purchasing something like long-term life insurance. But if you're on limited income, limited assets, I see a lot of people that will come to the agency and they have a hard time making ends meet and they're purchasing things that they might not be able to afford, or if they don't have things to protect, it might not be right for them. So it really just depends. I suggest that you can contact a social worker at Commission on Aging. We can talk one-on-one to see what your situation is, but we're not affiliated with any type of insurance company, so we're not going to recommend one over another.
From Alger, someone wondering then, is it advisable to have a supplement to Medicare?
You know what, that's a very good question. Medicare doesn't cover 100%. There are deductibles with Medicare. I know in 2014, the Part A deductible, if you're hospitalized, is $1,216. It's not just once a year, it's within a 60-day benefit period. So depending on when you're going in and out of the hospital, you could meet that deductible several times a year. Part B deductible is $147, so that's when you're doctoring, you're outpatient, if you're having labs, tests, x-rays, things like that. So it might be very important to purchase a supplemental policy to cover your out-of-pocket expenses, including the 20%, so that you're not faced with a lot of medical bills.
All right, and that's something Commission on Aging could help assess as well?
Most definitely. If you're interested in reviewing what type of insurance you have or what could be available to you, you can give us a call if you're 60 and over and reside in Isabella County. Commission on Aging is more than happy to meet with you one-on-one to talk about what's available in your area.
And if you don't reside in Isabella County, most, if not all counties have a Commission on Aging?
Most definitely. You can at least contact the Commission on Aging, 989-772-0748, and we can refer you to somebody in your area.
Okay, very good, thank you. Shannon, let's talk Social Security disability.
Sure.
So we have a caller who's 66 years old,
Okay.
On disability, but was taken off and put on Social Security.
That's right.
He was told he was too old for disability. Is there indeed an age limit on Social Security disability?
That's an absolutely great question, and the situation is exactly as it's described. When an individual who's on disability reaches their full retirement age, then they are transferred from the disability rolls to the Social Security retirement rolls. And there's no cut in benefit. There's no, it's absolutely just a transition in name only. Benefits remain exactly the same. It's because of the way disability is figured, because when we calculate the person's disability benefit, it is calculated as though they got to the full retirement age at the point they became disabled. So when they actually get there, there's nothing to prove, I guess.
So that ends up being kind of a moot point.
Sure,
Because you
exactly.
say it's name only, so you're getting the same benefits, the same amount of money.
Exactly.
They just call it something different. Okay, very good. You spoke earlier about the concern of a cut in Social Security, which you're saying is not really a concern. But now from Beaverton, the question is, will there be an increase in Social Security this year?
This year, in the December payment, which is paid the month after, so it will be effective in January, the raise is about 1.7%. It's been less than 2% for the last 3 years. That's based upon information that's provided by the Department of Labor for consumer price information for all consumers and all workers. There are a number of ways, and one of the things, to go back to the earlier question, is which consumer price index do we want to use to actually calculate how much people should get in the cost of living. It's a key component to Social Security, but there are people who would modify the formula. Some on one end would like to use a consumer price index for the elderly because they don't necessarily follow the same buying patterns that normal workers do. There are other people that want to have a chained index, which actually would reduce the cost of living. Either way, there will be some modification of the existing formula. But I think that's one of the key things that the Congress will look at in the coming years, is how those cost of living benefits are passed on, because the cumulative effect over years and years is huge.
When do you expect that change? Are we even at a point where you can anticipate when a change in the index might occur?
That's going to require legislation again.
We're not even at that point.
No, that's not even been proposed.
Okay, so sit back and relax.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least this year.
Yeah, all right, very good, thank you. Jennifer, I have someone I've recently retired, excuse me. What are some volunteer opportunities that maybe they can look for to help other older adults?
Sure. Commission on Aging, we strive on our volunteers. They are a wonderful part of our organization. We're always looking for volunteers such as home-delivered meal drivers to take meals to and from homebound older adults in the community. We have escort drivers that can take older adults to and from medical transportation and grocery shopping. We have receptionist ambassadors that help answer our phone and greet people when they walk in the door. We have friendly visitors to meet with older adults who might not be able to get out in the community very often and socialize. And we also have friendly callers that might be able to make a call to an older adult just to say hello, or to remind them at certain times to take medications or other things that they're in need of.
How big is your volunteer staff?
Hundreds. It's amazing the
Those are a
turnout
lot
that
of
we
services.
get. Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be able to do it without our volunteers. We're very appreciative of everything that they can do for us. If
Now, let me do a shout out too for the Commission on Aging. You have recently celebrated a birthday as an organization. You're in your 41st year now,
40th
correct?
anniversary, correct,
Yeah.
most definitely.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. As well, you have as well, PBS.
Yes, yes, our
About the same time.
organizations are both middle age. All right, very good. And Social Security, are we counting? How long has that been around?
I'm sort of at the same age as you guys are in terms of my service, so yeah.
We'll just leave it there?
Yeah, just
Yeah. Okay, very good. So let's follow up as you talk about your volunteers. That aside, now, if an individual wants to come to your facility, what are some activities they can do there?
Depends on the location. I know the Mount Pleasant, Isabella County Commission on Aging. If you come in, there's always people engaged in cards, bingo, dominoes. You can see people shooting pool. It's really popular over at Commission on Aging. We recently got a walking trail on the outside of Commission on Aging, and we're going to be getting exercise equipment installed within the next couple of weeks, so that'll be very exciting.
Fantastic.
We also have off-site activities. Some popular ones are aqua Zumba or water aerobics, and we also have day trips that are available. So if you're interested or you're not sure what date, certain times people meet, we have an active living guide, a monthly newsletter. You can call and ask us to send one to you. We can mail them out once a month. Otherwise, you can stop in. You're always invited, and we carry them there as well.
Okay. We're taking your questions to Ask the Senior Care Specialist here on CMU Public Television. There's still about 10 minutes for you to get involved at the phone number on the screen. So Shannon, we're talking about asking senior care specialists, but I'm going to take it back a little bit and say, when a person has a baby,
Okay.
one of the things you do shortly after the birth is get them a Social Security number.
Absolutely.
Why?
And there's some very good reasons for doing that. First of all, if you want to open a bank account, if you want to buy savings bonds, if you want to enroll the baby in medical health care, and here's a big one, especially at this time, if you want to claim the child as a deduction on your tax return, you need a Social Security number.
Oh, now there's motivation.
That's motivation. The process is really quite simple. We're going to ask for the baby's birth certificate. We're going to ask for the parent's ID or the person who's enrolling the child for a Social Security number. And we're going to ask for an identity for the baby. Usually, a doctor's slip or an immunization record. Those are the best. When babies are born at the hospital social workers will send stuff to the state of Michigan, but sometimes there's a delay on doing that. So if you want to do it faster, just come to the Social Security office. Process takes about 5 minutes.
Okay. We have a call from Waterford saying he collects his Social Security. His wife passed away this year in January. Can he collect on his wife's Social Security?
Well, I don't know, but without checking, but he absolutely should check, and that process is only going to take a couple of minutes. Of course, if there are additional benefits payable, that's the key thing that we do. We want to show people what their options are, help them with the timing of selecting those options. We don't make the choices for the individual, but we want to make sure that they have full knowledge of what they can do and when they can do it to get the most out of the program. That's what we do.
So I want to back up for just a minute on disability,
Sure.
because you talked about how when an individual reaches full retirement age, they simply shift to off of disability and to Social Security, and it's more or less a name change.
Mm-hmm.
But we have someone from Owasso wondering, he's about to be 62, and he is on disability. Should he apply? Do you have to do something to trigger this? Does he need to apply?
No, if he's on disability, he's exactly where he needs to be because, again, his benefit is not being reduced. Normally, if you file at 62, you get a reduced benefit. So again, he's getting an unreduced benefit. In addition to that, of course, 2 years after his cash benefits begin, he's going to qualify for Medicare. Both are key factors for people on disability and help them survive after they've become disabled.
All right. Jennifer from Swartz Creek, an individual asking, what type of resources are available for older adults who need personal care or help with the activities of daily life, the ADLs?
Sure. The Commission on Aging here in Isabella County, we have personal care aides that are available to go out and assist with showering, dressing, bathing, grooming. Generally, those services are limited, so about 1 to 3 times a week, just depending on need and availability. Sometimes there can be waiting lists for those programs, so we suggest that you contact the Commission on Aging and talk to a social worker to see what type of services are actually needed in the home and how often they're interested in them. If the services are needed a little bit more often, like daily care, we might be able to make referrals. Private providers, private duty home care agencies that are available in their area so they can get the help that they need.
Now, you're telling us about what Isabella County can offer, logically enough, because that's where you work. And while you can't speak for other Commission on Agings, should people expect generally similar services at different Commission on Agings?
Even if they can't come into the Isabella County Commission on Aging, there's always some sort of a Commission on Aging in your area. I say that's the best place to start off with. Give them a call, see what's available. They can direct you where you need to go, where to look.
And we are getting a lot of questions about Social Security. Strangely enough, I guess it's confusing. So we may not get to them all tonight. Can people go to, I mean, I know, Shannon, they can go to the Social Security office.
But
and
we've
they
got
also,
a great website too.
Okay, and what is that website?
The www.socialsecurity.gov or gov.
Okay.
And it's one of the very best available in the federal government because you can find out what your benefits are going to be. You can get forms, you can get pamphlets, you can get a zillion things. You can even do your enrollment from the website.
User friendly.
Great. Oh, it's great.
Okay, okay. Now, for someone who wants or feels they need a personal interaction, again, the Social Security Administration, can the Commission on Aging help with that as well?
Most definitely. We accept appointments. A lot of times it's easier if you can call first versus doing a walk-in because a lot of times we might have you bring in material. For example, with Social Security, they have a program called Low Income Subsidy or Extra Help. One of the calls we get a lot are people that can't afford their medications and they might say, is there any help that's available? Social Security has the Extra Help program. It's based on both income and assets. So they'll look at your gross income. They'll also look at assets such as checking, savings, stocks, bonds, 401ks, IRAs, but they exclude your home and your vehicle. So what we might have you do is bring in a list of those assets and income, and we can sit down and help you apply online.
All right, Shannon, from Lansing, are dental needs covered under Social Security?
No, that's one of the exclusions for Medicare.
Okay, and from Blanchard, we have an individual on disability and wondering why do they keep reviewing her case every year when she has a long-term illness?
By law, every individual on disability is required to have a review at some point. It depends upon the severity of the disability. Reviews take place at 1 year or 3 years or 7 years, depending upon the likelihood of recovery. In most cases, unless there's medical improvement, the disability will continue. And it's very important, though, for people to cooperate in that because if they don't, their benefits can be suspended. So, again, there's a lot of things that we can do. There's also work incentives that are really important to help people who don't want to stay on the rolls and want to go back to work, find out how they can do that without either losing their benefits or their Medicare. So that's a great reason to contact us.
And tell me briefly the work incentive. How does that work?
Well, there's many of them. Because we run both the regular Social Security disability program and the SSI disability program, there are some that apply to both. There are some that apply to one or the other. So it's kind of a complicated thing to talk about. Again, going online and checking something called the Red Book at the website will give you the entire list of all those work incentives.
Okay, very good. And let me ask you, Jennifer, then through the Commission on Aging, having older adults working is such a big issue now. What services are you able to offer to help older adults who want to find or maintain employment?
Well, if they want to find or maintain employment, we can sit down with them, show them how to use different websites such as Michigan Works. We can direct them over there. If they just want to become volunteers, we can find volunteer opportunities, maybe not just at Commission on Aging, but other places in the community that could be willing to use good volunteers in the area.
All right. Part of my task in this is try to stump someone at some point. So I'm going to toss it over to you, Shannon.
Great.
I don't have
Thanks
faith
so
that I'll
much.
do this, but
Thanks
let me
so much.
ask you, because this is coming in from Windsor, Ontario, but this individual works in the States.
Okay.
So how would disability apply for a Canadian working in the U.S.? She's currently 62.
Well, that's a really interesting one. And again, to qualify for benefits in the United States, you have to be insured, which requires not only working for an awful lot of years, but also having what's called a current connection with the workforce. But there are some aspects of U.S. government benefits, such as Medicare, for example, that require U.S. citizenship. And so that may or may not be possible. It will depend upon, some people have dual citizenship, for example, and I would want to talk to that individual. The individual has nothing to lose, though, absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain if they want to file an application for disability. The worst that's going to happen is they're going to be told no, and it's free.
All right. Jennifer, we have a question from an individual whose mom has dementia, dad's having a hard time keeping up. It's very difficult for caregivers, we all know that. So when they look then at Medicaid and perhaps going into a facility, let's talk about the spend down. What are some things people need to know if you have assets, you want to get on Medicaid, and your assets exceed that? What do we need to know about the spend down?
Yeah, the key thing I always explain to people, though, if you are looking at long-term care and you might be applying for Medicaid, is don't spend down any assets until you talk to somebody who specializes in Medicaid. There could be ways to protect some of those assets, and unfortunately, a lot of times you see people that are spending without knowing that there are certain spousal protected amounts that they don't have to spend down. Social workers at Commission on Aging can meet with somebody or a family to see where they're at or whether or not they're ready to apply for Medicaid. Also, attorneys specializing in nursing home Medicaid might be a way to go, whether it's nursing home Medicaid or the waiver program.
I mean, this is really overwhelming at times, isn't it?
is.
You have people who are dealing with new health issues and new life issues, and then a system that is constantly changing. It's the nature of the beast.
When we take a look at these people's income and resources, some things count and some things are not countable. Some things that count can be excluded. So again, this can get very, very complicated.
And with the state, there's also a 5-year look-back period. So a lot of people might not realize that it could be very harmful to add names to assets, remove names from assets without talking to somebody first.
So I guess what I want to reiterate, we have less than a minute left, but what I'm hearing from both of you, if you have a question, just stop in the office and ask.
Exactly.
Most definitely.
Okay, very good. Thank you for helping to fuel our conversation tonight on Ask the Specialists. And again, I want to thank our guests because they've been very helpful at answering your questions. Shannon Patrick, a district manager with the Social Security Administration. Thanks very much.
You're very welcome.
And Jennifer Martin, a social worker with the Isabella County Commission on Aging. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your questions. You can look at our Facebook page for answers to some of the questions that we didn't get to tonight. We'll be posting those as soon as we're able. And we invite you to join us next week for a special edition of Ask the Specialists as we ask the veterans. Thank you for being with us tonight and have a good night.